Winter.
Thank you.
Winterborn.
Rowan and
Hello, and welcome to another author event at the Poison Pen Bookstore. I'm John Charles, and tonight at the Poison Pen is delighted to have back with us Christina Dodd, whose new book is Every Single Secret. I know we're not supposed to have favorite authors, but Christina is my favorite author, so I'm especially delighted to have her with us tonight. For those tuning in virtually, we will have a limited number of copies, signed copies of Every Single Secret. So once this program is over, if your heart's desire is to have a copy, go online or give us a call at the Poison Pen while supplies last. You can have a copy signed by Christina herself. Now I'd like to welcome New York Times bestselling author Christina Dodd.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. That was quite a tribute. This is just about one of the best bookstores in the world, and John's the best bookseller and reviewer. So,
Well, thank you. I always like to start with authors by having you tell us about yourself, all the dirt about Christina before you became a published author, because you didn't start out to write books.
I didn't. I thought, because I was always a reader, and I just pretty much thought that authors were, tall, beautiful, blonde women who lived on an island and took lovers and smoked cigarettes with, an extendo thing. And I was married very young, and we had 2 kids, and I was a drafter. I designed roads, mills, and sawmills, and it was just, and I wasn't very good at it. My husband does tell me that I was okay, but this was not what I was really meant to do. And so when I was pregnant with our first child, I said, well, I'm going to quit drafting, and I'm going to have this baby, and I'm going to write a book, because really how much trouble is one little baby? And some people who have had babies don't understand how terrible that is. And so basically I had 2 children, 3 scripts, and 10 years before I was published. And it was a long haul. And only one time through the entire time did my husband say, if you don't get published pretty soon, you're going to have to get a job.
But you did get published. That book was Candle in the Window, and that started your career. Now we're at 60-plus books and counting.
I think so.
Yeah.
Counting is not my good thing. So, yeah, I think so.
Hence the drafting career. But
yes, that was the drafting career.
Let's talk about Every Single Secret. What can you tell us about that?
I basically was looking at this idea of a young woman who, when she was a teenager, had the most awful trauma. I mean, and I don't mean rape. We're not going there. I don't do that. She lost her family. A crime lord put out a hit on the entire family, and her mother was killed. She lost her little sister. Her stepfather took her on the run and taught her all kinds of self-defense things that no young woman should have to have, and it was just a trauma that overwhelmed her life. And for the next 14 years, she's just completely and totally alone, and she doesn't trust anybody, and she's very careful about it. And all of a sudden a guy comes in and she makes a mistake. She doesn't realize who it is, and things go on from there. It gets tough. She ends up on an island where the crime lord is, and she's being used as a distraction for him in a way that the guy she met, says, I'm blackmailing you. This is what we're going to do. And I'm once he realizes that you're the daughter of this man, he'll be enraged, and he won't be able to figure out what I'm doing. And so that's what the entire story is. But I really enjoyed writing it. I thought the couple was very funny. I thought they were well suited. I liked the way they talked to each other. And then they made me do reader questions at the end. And I wrote the reader questions up, and, they were like, have you ever had a really big trauma when you were a teenager? Or have you ever been stalked on the internet, or any of that stuff? And I got the questions back from like the sensitivity reader that the publisher has, and they said, this is going to really cause people in reading groups to go have problems. And I said, take out what you think it is. But I hadn't realized the book was serious, really, because to me it wrote very easily, and she was handling it well, and he was actually helping her, but which I just spilled my beans there. But enjoyed it. I thought it was a great book, and I really enjoyed it.
It's got a great opening. It's set, she lives in a lighthouse, and she has an unusual job. She kind of does all sorts of things for people, like a concierge, I guess.
She, you hear about these people that find jobs, that basically hire themselves out, and the person says, "Can you find me a plumber? Can you find me a travel agent? I need somebody to take care of my life while I'm traveling overseas or whatever." And that is what she does. She does anything that one of her clients asks her to do. She finds whoever they need, and she takes care of things for them. She's called the fixer, and basically, I'd heard about jobs like this, and I just think that's so neat. And the other thing is, of course, she's doing this because she is deathly afraid that the crime lord is going to find her and wipe her out. And so this way, she can just move across the country all the time. She's always working on the internet. And unfortunately, she lands in the town with the lighthouse and kind of settles down, and that gets her in trouble.
You're kind of on trend for crime fiction right now because secrets are a big thing.
Really?
And your book is built
I
on.
accidentally managed to hit a trend. Who knew?
Somewhere Jane is pounding her fists on a table in
Yeah, I know she
frustration.
is.
But
She's taking notes. Jane Ann Krentz is sitting there going, secrets.
yeah, it is. And it always reminds me of that's why she's so hesitant to let anyone in, because she has these secrets.
Mm-hmm. She is. It is. She has no trust of anybody. She just knows she's terribly afraid she's going to end up dead, and not in a instant pleasant way, as it were.
What I also love about the book is you take characters that could be almost caricatures in a sense on the island, and you actually make them real people. How do you go about giving these mob boss
The crime lord thing?
Yes, his arm piece and things like that, personality and nuance?
Oh, I know so many crime lords.
Yeah.
To me, one of the fascinating characters always is the guy who's really, really powerful, and now he is aging, and everybody in the world is after his job, and that's the situation in this. And so what you have is somebody who actually has conflicts other than the ones that you see on the surface. The first thing that he does is point a gun at her head, and comes really close to shooting her. So.
What about setting? Because that's equally important in your books. How did you come up with Raptor Island?
To me, the California coast is just fascinating because it's so wild and so beautiful. And, the whole Pacific coast, obviously. I'm from the West Coast. And so I, at one point in the previous books, created a small town on Big Sur. And it's gorgeous, absolutely fabulous place. And then I was kind of like, I want to stick here. And how is somebody who is a crime lord going to be able to keep himself safe? How is he going to keep it as kind of like his own castle? And that's it. There's the islands off, the California islands off of the coast, the southern coast, Santa Catalina, that area. And there are a few there that are not populated. And so I just made one up.
Now, the book is kind of tangentially related to your Gothic series.
As I say, Gothic makes a cameo appearance, kind of like Alfred Hitchcock.
And those books preceded this, and I was fascinated because when you were creating the town of Gothic, it has a unique history, but you were inspired by Sedona, Arizona, in one sense.
Oh, it was that center of the world thing. Sedona it's got that navel of the universe. Is that what it is? And they've really done fabulously well with this myth that they've got about it. And they promote it so well, and they've got all the meditation and everything. And so, what I've basically got is a small town that has this legend about when the fog comes in that brings back souls of lost souls. And the merchants just love it. They really play on it. And the first book, it did bring in a lost soul. So it was fascinating. I loved Gothic. I don't know if I'll ever completely leave Gothic.
It's a great place. Is it true that one of your editors challenged you to build a town called Virtue Falls?
Virtue Falls?
Yeah, Virtue.
Yes, she did. She wanted something very, very different. She wanted something on the Washington coast. Virtue Falls was also a lovely town, a little more gritty. than Gothic. Gothic is kind of gossamer, and Virtue Falls is a tourist town too, so I can have murder come in and out. And, there's always some murder happening in Virtue Falls. I actually had one fan say to me, I always read your settings and I want to live there until I realize all the stuff that's going on, and then I'm thinking, no, too many people die.
Is that your drafting background that helps you create these places kind of visually? You're supposed to say yes, of course.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's exactly right. But how are you going at this?
Well, just in a sense, they're so real. So I'm thinking if you're analytical and you're a drafter and you can plan bridges and roads and things, you could build a town.
I don't think it's. I don't.
But then again, there's the math.
I don't think we're. No, I'll disagree with you completely. Basically, I was born in California and raised there till I was 11. Then I moved to Idaho, which is very rural and completely different from California, may I tell you. Especially at that time, there were like cows in the city. And I was in shock, and I lived there for a couple of years, and then I lived in Oregon for a little bit, then I was back to Idaho, went to college there, met my husband, had the 2 kids, and then the entire market for housing flopped, and that was what my husband did. And so we moved to Houston, and we lived there for a couple of years before their housing market flopped too, and we decided not to move anyplace else because we didn't want to ruin their economy too. So we just stuck it out in Houston for 21 years. And then when the kids were grown and through college, we decided to come back towards the West Coast because my mother at the time was still alive and his dad, and we wanted to be closer to family. And at the same time, so we moved to Washington State, even though they were in Idaho, because we didn't want to be that closer, but no, not right on top of them.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your writing career, because you have written in a number of different genres. You've written historical romance, historical fiction, I guess, contemporary romance, romantic suspense, you name it. Is there a reason for that other than the fact that some of your fellow writers claim you just have a short attention span?
That's it. Yeah, no, I read a lot of different things, and I like it. I mean, I like things, and I think, oh, I could do that. Mercedes Lackey had a bunch of books that were based on fairy tales, which I just saw last night. I didn't realize she'd done that, and I started making up a fairy tale, and I'm thinking, Christina, you cannot do this. You cannot change genres. Again, you're
going into romantasy, is that it?
I'm telling you. I know. But no, and so I do. I just started out with historical romance and wrote like 25, and then I finally thought I'm plagiarizing myself. And so I had always wanted to write contemporary romantic suspense, and I did that. And while I was writing that, then paranormal got huge, and I kind of wandered in there and wrote what was probably my most popular series, which is Darkness Chosen, which is shapeshifters, and another series called The Chosen Ones. And then I went to plain suspense, and I tried very, very hard while I was writing suspense to not, do my romance roots. I kept the sex and the romance kind of like on a lower level than I had done before. And with this book, I slipped and got to go back to the big romance, and so that was fun. And then, are you going to ask me about? Are you going to ask me about
Legends?
No, Daughter of Romeo and Juliet. Daughter.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Okay, all right. Then we won't go into
but
the
let's
next.
do a little bit more on this, because I'm interested from a practical standpoint.
Well, it's not practical at all.
I know. Well, I'm thinking, is your publisher saying we can't put you in one box? We can't put you in one section. You're all over the. I mean, there's probably pluses and minuses to writing different books.
Okay, we keep talking about Jane Ann Krantz, which is obviously a big friend of mine and friend of John's. And she writes this Jane Castle, which is her futuristics, and she writes Metaquick is historical, and Jane Ann Krantz is her contemporary romantic suspense. And she will tell you this is not good career planning. I mean, she's just told me that forever. When I said I needed to change names when I was changing things, she says, oh, don't do it. You just don't want to try and maintain 3 names. The publishers would be much happier if we all stuck with the same genre, because it's just so much, it's easier to put you in a pigeonhole. When I started writing just suspense, bookstores would not put me in suspense. They put me in romance, and that was all there was to it, because I'd written so many romance books. And, once you're pigeonholed, that's where you are. And the readers don't necessarily like it when you wander away into something new. But, I've been published for 34 years, and I wrote for 10 years before that, so you do the math. I'm only 43, but let's not go into that. And you have to do something as a writer to keep your own attention. You have to challenge yourself. Everybody's read somebody where you just think she's tired of it. And I've never gotten tired of it. I have a really good time with my writing, and I think it usually shows through.
It does. Do you have readers that will only read certain of your books, so that you know that? Okay.
I've been reading my own historical romance lately. I have no idea why, but except for the fact that it's been 30-some years since I wrote them, and I don't remember what happens. I got to the end of one, and I was like, I had no idea who was doing the bad. Oh, that was good. I can see why people adore them, because I just think
they're a lot of fun.
They are a lot of fun.
We've talked about how it's difficult to write in different genres, to blend things and blur things, but one thing I think is important to note, you're an author who has a consistent voice. So you may write paranormal romance, you may write contemporary romance, you may write suspense, but it's like almost a fingerprint, a literary fingerprint. You can tell it's you, no matter what the story is.
People who have known me for years and then read one of my books say, I knew it was you, because I have a voice and they heard me talking. They know what it's going to sound like. But people, it really is important for people. They like the setting they like, and that's very important for readers. And I don't have a complaint about that. I have my little quirks too as a reader. So.
How would you describe your voice for a tough question?
I think I write very serious stuff, and then somehow it gets translated to funny.
Really?
People always laugh at my books, but I think no matter what, there's humor in life, and you might as well. I don't care how bad things are, you're going to laugh.
So you've done all these different genres, and now coming up, you decide, let's do something different. Why on earth did you take on this project? What can you tell us about it?
Okay, so I was talking to my daughter, Arwen, and I said to her, I'd like to do a takeoff on a really familiar story, like, the way they did Pride and Prejudice, and they've done some twists on it, everybody wrote. I really want to do this very familiar story. And Arwen said, the daughter of Romeo and Juliet. And I said, Romeo and Juliet are dead, which is what everybody says. And then it's so stupid because, A, not only would they be dead by now, of course, but they never lived. They're fictional. And so we started working on it, and it came out into, I did 4 pages, wrote them right off the bat. She must have been sitting inside my head for a long time. And then I quit, because it's like, who's going to buy this book? Nobody's going to buy it. I've already written changed too many times. And then Jane Krantz and Susan Elizabeth Phillips and I were backing and forthing an email one day, and we're pretty funny people, and so we amuse each other anyway. And so Susan wrote me privately, and she said, you're funny, you could write a rom-com. And I wrote her back, and I said, and you'll be proud of me. I said, yeah, sure, that's a great idea. I've written historical romance and paranormal romance and romantic suspense and suspense. I should really write another genre. And then I thought, I have this daughter of Romeo and Juliet thing. So I wrote it back and I said, how do you write a rom-com? And I'm pretty sure most of you know Susan Elizabeth Phillips. She wrote back and she said, A, boy and girl meet. B, boy and girl fall in love. C, boy and girl have problems and live happily ever after. And then she said, and this was what did it, she said, duh. So I wrote her back and said, well, then why don't you write faster if it's that easy? Which she called me a bad name. And then I called Jane and I told her what happened, and she said, send us the pages. And so I sent them the pages, and that's the reason the book was written, was because they both said, you got to write this book. And I was I tipped me right over into it. It's called The Daughter of Fair Verona. It comes out June 25th. We're running a contest tonight, which some of you know. If you're here, and you can put your name into a hat that we're going to have, except for Arwen. She can't do that. And, and we'll pick out a name and give you an advanced reading copy. Do we have?
No, they're all up front under lock and key, but we'll get one out.
Okay, all right. He's got it. Scott's got it. Turn around and look. You want to bring it up? This is my husband, Scott. This is a really rare thing. Advanced reading copies now are normally electronic, and this one is just, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. And the first quote here is from John Charles, and it says, "This fresh and funny historical brilliantly showcases Dodd's inventive plotting skills and flair for captivating characters, infused with a sharp and saucy sense of wit the bard himself would be proud to claim as his own." And we've really got, I mean, the quotes on here is just
You
wonderful.
got one from Mary Bly, who's like the Shakespearean,
Yeah.
otherwise known as Eloisa James.
She
but
is Eloisa James, yes. Let me see. She said Shakespeare may roll over, then he'll set up and applaud. But I told her, because I knew people were going to be perturbed about this. I mean, Romeo and Juliet, for Pete's sakes, it's iconic. And I said, you know, people are going to be upset about this. Well, she knows everything you can say about Shakespeare. She teaches at Fordham University, and she is a Shakespearean scholar. And so she wrote me a thing to put into this book that basically says, you got to realize Shakespeare didn't even invent the story. What Shakespeare did, he always stole his stories, but what he always did was just rewrite them so beautifully and so perfectly. And so, yeah, it's been
So it's coming in June.
It is coming in June. June
And
25th, I'll be back on, I believe, the 22nd.
22nd here. So let's take a brief commercial message and say it's not too early to reserve copies.
Oh, more commercial message. If you pre-order tonight, you can have the sticker sheet that Scott's going to wave at you. We will give you the sticker sheet that they did, which they're really cute stickers. Here, bring them. Okay. Did anybody see the video? Did you see the video? Yeah. I was just sticking them all over my face and saying, "What are you going to do with the stickers? That's just stupid." But you know, it was a fun video.
And it apparently turns out this might not be the first or the last. There's more to come.
Oh, there are definitely. I've already finished the second book, and book 3 will be. It's approved, and I'm ready to write as soon as I finish the next.
And just to annoy people, you've made it many different things. It's historical fiction.
It is historical fiction.
There's a mystery in it.
There is a mystery in it.
There's a bit of romance.
There is a bit of romance. I had one lady that read an early copy, and she gave me a 1-star review on Goodreads and said, "This is nothing but a YA." And I was like, "Oh, thank you, lady," because it was like, what's wrong with a YA? I'm sorry. She's the first thing she says is, she says, "I'm an old maid. I mean, I've been around forever. I'm 19 years old." You know, Juliet was 13, so of course she's an old maid.
Yeah.
You have to consider the time, and she's a smart ass.
There you go. Yeah, it has your snarky sense of humor.
Oh yeah. This one is first person. This is my first person book.
Really?
And I
I thought some of your historical romances, no.
I did historical romances. A few of them had a little bit of
First person.
inserted, but nothing.
Let's talk about your writing process, because people are always fascinated by how authors create what we read. Your process has not remained monolithic.
It's not what
Monolithic, the same over your career. It's changed a bit.
I basically. I go into a rant whenever people talk to me about writing, because you will run into writing instructors or people who really think they're awfully clever, who will tell you there's only one good way to write. And I know a lot of really successful authors, they almost all write differently. And for my career, I continue to write as long as I can get the words on the page. I don't care how I do it. Book 19 was after that. Must have been 29. 43.
One of them you wrote backwards, I think. One of them you wrote backwards.
I did write backwards. It was Touch of Darkness, and I wrote like the first 50 pages, and then I was about to get into some terrible issues with the hero and heroine, and I didn't feel like it right then. And so I went to about the midpoint and started writing forward, and I still didn't want to go back. And so I kept writing a little bit more, and then I kept writing a little bit more, and then I ended up writing the entire book. And by then, I figured I had like 50 pages that weren't written in the middle of the book, and I went back and I filled it in. So basically, it was completely backwards, and nobody ever said to me, "This book reads like it was written backwards." It hit the New York Times just fine and dandy, and but you do what you. If you're going to have a long-term career, you're going to have to adjust. If you suddenly think, I can't write anymore, you're going to have to do something different and change what you're doing. And I have seen authors that can't adjust, and usually they stopped writing.
Let's talk about the marketing perspective of titles and covers. How much?
What am I going to say?
Well, how much input do you have? Because
almost none.
Really, it's all editorial. It's all publisher driven, and
this one I said I think we should have a lighthouse, and everybody agreed with that. But then I never said let's make it.
Green is another trend thing. So
isn't it interesting?
Yes.
I didn't realize it when I saw it, but
Yeah.
it pops really well.
It does. But you really don't have much input into titles. That's not your flair.
This was not my. No, it's not that I don't have a flair. It's just they always tell me I'm wrong. This was my editor's title. I remember one time Arwen came back from college and she said, I have a friend who read One Kiss from You and she really liked it. And I said, I never wrote One Kiss from You. Well, I had. But the editor had titled it. I didn't even remember. I remember it now. But yeah.
Another kind of professional issue that many writers have to deal with comes in the form of this question: what have you learned working with literary legends like Susan Elizabeth Phillips and Jane Ann Krentz?
Obviously, they're a huge influence on me. It's kind of an honor. They really, really know what they're doing, and they're such kind people. And then, like I said, they're funny, and so they keep me on my toes. And Susan Phillips was here a couple of weeks ago. Did you come? No. Okay. Susan. She had just had a Wall Street Journal article out, and the first thing they led with, of course, because she's a woman, is it said this 79-year-old grandmother, and she's like, so she did an autographing first in Seattle and then here, and what she did with every autographing is she would lead with it, and then she'd drop to the ground and do push-ups, and it was just hysterical. And the sighting in Seattle, she asked Jane and I if one of us would like to interview her, and then we both said, sure, whatever. I figured she'd go with Jane because they've been friends forever, and because 79, and so no, I was included, and they just they're so generous and with the things they say, they're lovely women. It's nice because their books are so good, and it's nice to know that they have that bedrock solid kind personality. It's wonderful.
It's kind of against the myth that especially romance writers are all conniving and backstabbing and all that.
Romance writers, no. I mean, yeah, I've run into a few, but I honestly, men are a little more difficult in my opinion.
That's probably true. Let's talk about, if I remember correctly, before you were a writer, one of the careers you had was in a bookstore. Is that
Yes.
correct? What did working in a bookstore teach you anything that you could apply to your writing life?
That was why I went into the bookstore. I went into the bookstore, independent bookstore. I was where I bought books, and they would pick them out. And I went into the bookseller and I said, can I work for free? And she knew me because I'd been in there so much, but she kind of looked at me like, this woman's insane. And I did. I worked, while the kids were at school because I could do that too. The kids were in school, and she would schedule me at that time. And after the end of the month, she gave me some money, and I just was working there for a long time. But yes, the book, there used to be book sellers, as in the representatives, who would come into the store, and just hearing her buy books the way she did. And I saw Julie Garwood's The Bride come in, the cover. They would bring in a cover. flat, kind of like that, and lay it out there and say, this is going to be the next big book. And I saw, the guy came in and said, this is it. And Carol just bought so many books. I learned so much. And I learned about customers, what people really, really like. And I learned not to say anything too honest about people that are really, really popular authors, because then everybody every other customer will come over and go, no, you just didn't read the right one. And it's like, there was one very huge author I didn't care for, which it wasn't her, it was her. The books didn't work for me. It's going to happen. People are not going to love every book in the world, and you're not going to love every author in the world. Some authors will speak to you, some won't, and that's fine. But people really get very intent on the authors they love.
What about you as a reader? Do you read the same things that you write? Do you read only certain genres?
I read almost everything except mystery.
Really? You're going to have to start mysteries.
You would think I would learn how. The trouble with mystery for me isn't that I don't like mystery. I do like mystery. I like suspense. I think it's very good, but I want personality in there, and a lot of mysteries don't do personalities, don't do the characters that I like, which is, well, I always think one of the reasons Agatha Christie is so popular is because look at the characters she created that are eternal. Everybody knows those characters.
Well, people think Christie is deceptively simple, but she did that for a purpose.
She was brilliant.
Yeah. And you disagreed with me earlier, so I'm going to have to disagree with you now, just to even the playing field. There are mysteries that are character-driven, so we'll find one for
I know
you.
there are, but I can't find them.
Well, that's why you have to talk to booksellers.
I know.
Now we'll gloss over that little contretemps and say, what about your success in marketing on the internet? Because you've gained a reputation that's made you kind of well-known. How did that start?
Now, the internet, I'll say anything on the internet. Well, not quite anything, but it's like today, because I'm in you guys all know this one. I go into the bathroom and I get the seat cover out and I tear the little pieces off of it and I put it on the toilet and I get ready to sit down and the automatic flusher goes off and it takes the damn thing away. I have to get another seat cover and then I'm putting it back on there and I'm thinking, I hope I make it this time. So while I'm sitting there, doing my thing, I'm thinking, this is going to be a really good internet post. So I wrote it all up and I sent it to my one assistant. We've started a new thing on Facebook that's Behind the Bookshelf, which please do join if you're interested. And I sent it to her and I hope she put it up. But yeah, I think you can, I think as long as you relate to people, which, that's very relatable. Everybody has this stuff happen. And, or that time when you were in the bathroom, I couldn't get the faucet to work either. It was one of those days. I'm in there with the faucet like this and it won't come on. And the lady goes, here, use this one. And,
So what social media platforms are you on? How can readers find you? Do you have a newsletter?
Please join my newsletter. You have no idea. People know this because I get really irritated when people ask me something that I've already put in the newsletter like 7 times. And I do get fan mail on my newsletters. So you really should go ahead and join the newsletter. It's ChristinaDodd.com, and which is right there. And then I'm on Facebook, of course, Christina Dodd. I think it's just Christina Dodd fans. And then I'm on Instagram, which I don't even know, Christina Dodd something or other. And I'm on TikTok. So that's been a lot of fun. John laughs at me.
I do. You do very well on that.
I'm willing to do anything. Like I said, I put a bunch of stickers on my face the other day.
There you go.
Did a commercial for this signing.
You're going into historical mystery, historical fiction. Can we expect more suspense from you?
Yes, I'm writing one right now. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just a lot of fun. I really have a good time.
You can tell.
During COVID, we were all, in isolation and freaked out and everything. And I was toying with quitting writing. And then I thought, I don't know what I'll do with myself if I don't write. I like the job, which is, that's hard to retire from.
Yeah, there's not a lot of call for drafters either.
Actually, there are a lot of call for drafters, but
Good
you know what?
drafter. They're not a lot of call for bad
You know,
drafters.
when I was drafting, there was a drafting board and you used a pen or a pencil. It's all on the computer now. I would absolutely be a flop. I always said for years, I was like, if the writing doesn't work out, I'll be going back to drafting. And then computer-aided drafting came in and I was like, well, that's that. Better make it work.
Why don't we go ahead and open it up to questions from your fans, questions from online viewers. Any of you feel free to ask Christina.
Okay.
She'll answer anything, almost anything.
Yeah, I'll answer anything.
Way in the back.
Hi. You were talking about writing across many genres, but then also listening to what booksellers are talking about books. How much of your writing is following like your passion and what you're interested in, and how much is going to market?
The writing is, I just write what I can write. I've written too much to like pay attention to trends. After I've written this in first person, I realized that first person was suddenly very big. I don't know what had happened. I don't know, but yay me. No, mostly I just go looking for the good story, and then I have to figure out how to market it. And yeah.
Have you ever adapted a story slightly just to fit, like your editor
Well,
said, I'm sorry, it's books set in Italy are not selling, move it to Portugal.
Oh,
or
of course.
something like that.
Yeah, but that's only if I do it at the beginning. I mean, I produce a synopsis of some kind and give it to the editor and get it approved. I don't just start a book. And Virtue Falls, I wanted to start it in Italy, and my editor said, no, you can't do that. She said, I just won't sell. So that was fine. That's a minor tweak. That's nothing. And like I said, with the suspense, I was trying to stay into the more mainline suspense, so I didn't write much sex and sexual tension and all that. And then this one I slipped, but still.
You did have to stop the book you were writing about New Orleans.
I did have to stop what?
The book you were writing in New Orleans because of Katrina.
It's horrible when
reminds-
family members.
Yeah, I
remind
don't
you of
know.
things.
It wasn't my fault. I swear. She and Scott and I were traveling. We were going to go to New Orleans because I was setting a book in New Orleans, and we're in Houston where we used to live, and we met with friends and everything, and we were ready to fly to New Orleans, and Katrina rolled in, and I was like, first thing is you watch the news and you're thinking, oh my God, this is horrible, and then of course the second thing is my book. I had like 100 pages of a book written that I was going to, and I was like, oh no, I'm in such trouble. And then the refugees started coming to Houston, and we had to fly home because they wouldn't let us fly in, of course not. And so I actually managed to hold that book off for, I think it was 2 books later when I wrote it, or 3, because, but at the time we didn't know if New Orleans was going to recover at all. So that was scary. I mean, and I was the least of the issues.
Other questions?
I have some from our online audience.
Can I tell them what the online, because we're doing this thing where if you're here, we'll put your name into a hat. We're doing it with the online audience too. If they put a question in the comments, we will put their name into a hat and they can have an arc too.
All right, great. Except for probably not this person.
Probably not.
No.
She's from Seattle.
Question from Seattle. You claim that you work out. How much weight can you bench press?
Okay, Jane. I am the oldest in my workout group by a lot. And so whenever I bench press, my trainer will take off, like big things. And I was feeling really bad. And I said, how much am I bench pressing? And she said 65 pounds. And I was like, that's okay. But then the other day she stuck 20 more pounds on it. So I was doing 85 pounds. Now, mind you, there's not very many bench presses when it's that 85 pounds, but I've got a strong upper body. Thank you, Jane. I
Somebody
really
was
enjoyed
spotting
telling
you, I
that
hope.
story.
Has a vampire ever appeared in any of your books?
No, I basically in the Darkness Chosen series, I had the head of the family that said, shapeshifter said vampires were just a myth.
Everybody's doing vampires. Okay, Maureen wants to know. She says, I've always adored your secondary characters. Rune Kateri, Ray, Nils Brooks, etc., etc. Did you ever wish that they were actually a main character or that you could turn them into a main character?
Yes, I would love to. I like doing the weird characters, secondary characters. I really could make them very eccentric and very interesting. And I would like to make them, I have made them into main characters. In Gothic, the novella I did was based on my trainer. And the thing was, with the very odd characters that I have, you can't make an entire book with them. It just wouldn't work. But you can certainly do a short story or a novella, and that's a lot of fun to read and to write.
Anybody in house?
Other questions? Sure.
Children's book? Well, I started out with Little House on the Prairie, but you're going to have to give me Charlotte's Web. I just think it's one of the best books ever written. Have you read it? And I mean, if you haven't read it in years, it's really worth rereading, because if it was written today, the editor would say, you're just wandering off and not talking about the main part of the story. You should eliminate this whole part in the barn where you're swinging and onto the straw and stuff like that. But he pulls it off. It's so charming, and it's such a slice of American childhood.
Okay, let's see. Robin says, so you publicly claim Jane as your friend.
I publicly claim Jane as my friend. I certainly hope that Jane also publicly claims.
And as related to that, would you and Jane ever consider doing a collaboration, or have you?
No, we have never collaborated on anything, and Jane absolutely says no, and I
But
agree.
you did collaborate with Connie, didn't you? You did that that set of
That was
one.
But
one-
that was me and Connie.
Yes, you and Connie.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
no. Jane works alone, and that's all there is to it. If one of us has plotting problems, we will sit down and talk. And I will plot with anybody. I love plotting. We all love plotting. I mean, it's like the easy part of the job, and it's fun. And then you get somebody else's brain in there on your book, and they see some very clever solutions for problems that you've got that Jane said, I think it must be the next Jane Castle book, which is
People in Glass Houses.
People in Glass Houses. And she said, I can't figure it out. They've got a car miles and miles away, and they pop out of these caves. And this is on the imaginary futuristic planet. And she says, how are they going to get to the car? And I said, we're on this planet. They call the car, it drives itself to them. And she went, and she was so happy. And I was like, that was easy. But, you get to the point where you can't see the forest for the trees. And it really helps to have somebody to plot with.
She says, no way. I value my friends too much to collaborate.
There you go.
You got to split the advance, too. Who wants to do that?
I'd split her advance.
How many books do you write in a year? Have you ever set a personal record?
I have. One year I wrote 4 1/3 books. It was too much. I was not a happy girl through the entire year. You can ask my husband. It was, yeah. But normally 2 books a year is what I try to do.
What's an average workday like for you? Do you have goals that you set every day?
My goal is always to write 10 pages a day. Sometimes that's 3 hours. Sometimes it's 24 hours. It doesn't work that way. I'm writing very quickly at the beginning and then very quickly at the end. And the middle is spent trying to figure everything out. And so but like I said, it always changes too. Every book is different. That's the thing that's fascinating. You'd think after 60-some books, I would know what I was doing. I haven't got a clue.
And you don't outline, right? Do you outline or do you work from an outline?
I do outline. I do a synopsis, yes. Jane and Susan Phillips were both what you call pantsers. They do it by the seat of their pants. They just sit down and start writing a book. They don't know where they're going. If I did that, I would be in a panic the entire time. I would be frozen solid. And so I have to kind of know where I'm going. And may I say, though, frequently I get towards the middle of the book and realize that whoever the bad guy is not the right bad guy. So I flop it around and it's not the same one that I started out with. So when people say to me, I knew right from the beginning, I think, well, good for you.
Any other, yes, towards
What is your best plotting tip?
That's what?
plotting tip.
Plotting tip. Okay, read everything. Oh, you know what? You just read. I always like to read the backs of books and where they were laying out the plot and think, how would I do this? And because there are no new plots, you might as well forget that. That's never going to happen. I really like finding a real clever plot. The other thing I do, and this is terrible, but if I find a plot that I really think is going to be great, and then I read it, and it's not, I want to fix it. And sometimes I have gone ahead and rewritten a book that somebody else did, in my opinion, badly. Nobody ever says, "Oh, Christina copied it." It just happened that way.
Let's see. Carla asks, did you write the book about Romeo and Juliet's daughter before or after your trip to Italy?
Oh, no, we went to Italy. We went to Italy specifically for Verona, except for, of course, my husband and I were having a very large anniversary, and so we were going to make a good trip anyway. But yeah, no, we went to, the book was done, and I had done a ton of research, and we went to Verona. If you ever go to Italy, go to Verona. It's a small city. It was so easy to get around in. The churches are gorgeous. The food is good. That was great.
Has Scott ever proposed a plot that you ended up using?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. My family has been plotting for me for years. Scott did, I did a novella off of one of his ideas. He was reading about Seattle after we first got there, and Denny Park was very close to the area we know really well. And it was originally a cemetery. And then they removed the bodies and turned it into a park. And he said, well, what if they missed one of the bodies? And it was haunting the park. And that was the idea. That was what happened from that. Yeah, no, he plots, and they all, my kids plot for me. My husband.
You have quite the audience here asking questions. Anybody here?
Any other questions? We did have, this is unusual. This is only the second time someone's mailed a question in. So let's open it up and see who wants. Now.
Is it from Seattle?
Oh, this is going to be worse than,
It is from
than
Seattle?
Jane's, isn't it?
It was
Okay.
not signed. No return address.
Uh-huh.
No signature.
Uh-huh.
So here's your last question, Christina. When are you going to come up with something so brilliant as Jane Ann Krentz's Dust Bunnies?
Does everybody know Jane Ann Krentz's Dust Bunnies? This is the Jane Castle books. You guys should read these. I love them so much. I like Jane's books. Okay, first, we're really good friends. I loved her books way before I ever met her, long before I ever moved to Seattle. I have her earliest books she has like 10 former names. And so, yeah, she came up with the futuristics a long time ago, before they were in fashion. And as she will tell you, people lined up around the block not to buy them. And so then she kept writing them, and they caught on. And these dust bunnies, they're just these little fuzzy things, and that are the pets on the planet. And they have a personality of their own. She really suffers about what to name them. She says that Elvis is probably her best dust bunny name ever. So, no, I will never be as brilliant as Jane.
That's probably a good point to end things. I'd like to thank everyone who's been with us this evening. Those tuning in virtually, before we end, it is still time. There's still time to pre-order Christina Dodd's Daughter of Verona. It's coming in June, and we will have signed copies of every single secret. And let's put a plug in for Jane Castle, whose book is coming in May, People in Glass Houses. And the reason I encourage you to do that is for authors, pre-orders are important because that's how their publisher knows whether or not they want to continue with them. So if you're thinking about ordering a book, do it in advance. It helps you. You have the book on hold, and it helps the author.
Yes, and anybody who obviously anybody who orders A Daughter of Verona tonight, they get the sticker sheet right away. But my publisher, Kensington Books, actually, if you pre-order it anywhere and you send them the information, there's a form on their site, and they will send you a sticker sheet after the book's published. So everybody can have a sticker sheet, and they're kind of great, I have to admit. Yeah. They stick on your
We'll
face
edit
really
out that
well.
last part.
Yeah, about everything other.
Just from the poison pen.
There you
Just
go.
oh yeah, please. Then you've got it early.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody, for coming. I really appreciate it. On a Tuesday night, this is wonderful.
Are we off? Are we off?
We can be.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and do the raffle before we do your
Oh, yeah,
signing.
let's do
So, Jake, can you bring up the box?